And so these other nations are going to take cover and flee and hide and come to the land of sub-Saharan Africa. But it also says that they're going to come with a lot of people. And it says in verse 10 that at the same time that these other nations, the Russians, the Chinese, the East Indians, the Pakistani, the Afghanistani, the Somalians, the Arabs, the Jews, the Europeans, it says at the same time that they're coming to the land of Canaan, sub-Saharan Africa, to hide, to flee, to conceal, to take cover, they're going to have an evil thought that's going to come to their head, or an evil agenda, an evil scheme, an evil plan. It says this in Ezekiel 38, verse 10. They know that they can't go there and enslave us like the old days, like this slavery in West Africa to Africa. They know they can't do another apartheid and just say you gotta go over here. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna set up laws. If you go against it, we're gonna throw you in jail. They know those days are gone. So these days they have to pray and strategically think about how can they come to Africa and make money. Because at the end of the day, when you look at a lot of the industries and business sectors in Africa, the Gentiles or the other nations are at the forefront.
In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or position of this channel, its hosts, or affiliates. This podcast is a platform for open discussions and exploration of various perspectives, including controversial and unconventional ideas. We encourage viewers to think critically, do their own research, and form their own opinions. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as fact, advice, or an endorsement of any specific viewpoint. Viewers' discretion is advised. MOYA Ulight, MOYA Upright. Welcome to another MOYA live stream, guys. Thank you for all the support you're giving the channel. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Obviously, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Thank you to all the members. You're doing the most for us. Okay, so here we go again. It's school time, and we are always keeping you busy, making sure that you're going to get the education that you're not going to get at the Mlungu schools. And we've been having a conversation about the original Israelites, and we've been trying to understand the Bible also, because we're coming from a generation that really Christianity isn't really our thing. So now we're trying to understand how was this Christianity used against us. And if you haven't already, please catch up on the other episodes with Mr. RONALD DALTON III. He's been on the show a couple of times, and we always appreciate that you make time for us. Welcome again.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And obviously in the comment section, send you through your questions and your comments, because I know you're here with your community.
Yes, people are watching.
Yes. No, I know you move in numbers. So we wanted to talk about the relationship between neocolonialism and the original Israelites, and how these people are moving and how history is repeating itself.
Yeah. So when you look at the Bible, it lets us know that in the future that other nations are going to come to the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan was the land of the Canaanites that the Israelites possessed. God told them to possess the land. And so in the book of Ezekiel 38, and this is an important book that people are kind of sleeping on, it lets us know that in the future, in the latter days, that specific nations are going to come to the land of Canaan. Now, you have to think about that because the land of Canaan is what we call today Israel, or what will be known as Israel.
Okay.
And when you look at modern day Israel, it doesn't have any raw materials and resources, and no other nations is trying to plunder and steal and loot and exploit the people that are there. They don't have anything that's there that other nations would want to take and have. So when you look at these other nations, you got to ask yourself, well, where in the world are multiple nations of people coming to steal, to loot, to exploit, and prey upon the people in the land? Because there's a lot of talk on whether modern day Israel is the Holy Land or the land of Canaan, or is it in sub-Saharan Africa? And my stance is that the true Holy Land or the land of Canaan is in sub-Saharan Africa. So when Moses left with the mixed multitude and the Israelites, he actually went south. So they left Egypt and northern Sudan area, and they traveled along the Nile River, going south into Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and then further south, but ultimately landing in the heart of Africa, like Central Africa, where the Great Lakes are. And so at this time, when Moses and the Israelites settled, or Joshua settled in Central Africa, they started to multiply and continue to grow in numbers. And then after a period of time, the larger families kind of developed into clans and lineages, and then people started to branch out and travel to other areas like Southeast Africa, Southwest Africa, West Africa, and East Africa. And so today we look at sub-Saharan Africa as mainly a land populated by the Bantu people, or people that carry the Y DNA haplogroup E1B1A. And you don't have to call yourself Bantu in Nigeria or Ghana, Togo, or Senegal or Gambia to be of the same lineage as the Bantu people, because at the end of the day, the West Africans have the same DNA as Southern Africans and Central Africans and East Africans that are Bantu. So, fast forward to today, even going back to the first colonialism period in the 13, 14, 1500s, where we see a lot of the European countries come into Africa and colonize Africa, but first they came with the missionaries, the Christian missionaries. And after that, they came with military force, and then slavery, and then independence of a lot of the African nations happened, but they didn't really leave. They just kind of like let African presidents rule the republics, but they still were like the shadow masters. But now we are seeing a new colonialism happening, and it's indirectly seen if you have eyes to see. And what I mean by that is that they are not coming with force, saying that this is the British protectorate, this is the French protectorate, this is under the Dutch and the Portuguese. They're coming with agreements, memorandums of understanding, trade, the Chinese, the East Indians, the Pakistani, the Afghanistani, the Russians, the white Arabs, and the Jews. They are, in addition to the Europeans, they're all here. And they're here for a reason. They're not here to just chill and relax. They're here to make money and to exploit the resources that belong to the Bantu people. The land, the oil, the timber, the natural gas, the silver, the gold, the cobalt, the lithium, the iridium, the diamonds, the platinum. I mean, we can go on the list of precious metals that they're coming to get And we see that in Botswana and South Africa, this was a huge moneymaker, mining and oil and natural gas and timber and just having access to land, arable land. You can grow grow crops and raise livestock. This was all part of the land grab that the Europeans did back in the day. But now these new nations are coming and they're doing exactly the same thing. The Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, anybody, if you look at Africa's biggest trade partners today outside of the European Union countries, it is China, India, and Russia is moving up to the top 3 to 5 position. And the reason why I know this is because I'm here, and as a foreigner, you know, we have to often go to the immigration office in VFS Ravonia and Home Affairs, and even some people go to the asylum office. And from talking to people that are African American and even witnessing it with my own eyes, there are a lot of Chinese here. There 50 people coming in at one time for a 9:30 appointment to get their visas, their extensions. And then it's not only them, it's the Arabs from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Iraq, Palestine, Lebanon, and then you will see now the Jews are coming in and out of these offices with their families, wives and kids. And you know that they are immigrants here because they're in the immigration office. In addition to that, you see large groups of Pakistani and Afghanistani people. In addition to that, you see Somalians, Eritreans, Ethiopians, and you're like, wait a minute, it's a lot of y'all coming here leaving your homeland. Why are you leaving your homeland? Why are you here? Because they can sit down next to me and they can say, you're American? I can say, yes. They can say, why you come here? I said, because we're African American. We were taken from here by force 400 years ago, and we want to come back to our homeland. Why are you here? And they just, when you ask them that question, they just like look like, what do you mean? Like, why are you here? And then they'll tell you different reasons why they're here. They love it here. But all of this is actually in the Bible. And we have to understand that in the Bible, it tells us how they're going to do these things, but the naming of these nations, you're not going to see China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan in the Bible. All right? And I want people to pay attention to what Ezekiel 38 says, because it really lists out clearly, because this is what I do in the movies that I make. It tells us that God is giving a prophecy to Ezekiel in Ezekiel 38, and he says to prophesy against Magog. Now this is one of the sons of Japhet. Magog, Meshach, Tubal, Gomer, Togarmah. These are all the descendants of Japheth, whose land is in the north of the equator. These are not African nations or countries. These are not Shemitic, Arabic, Hebrew-speaking nations. And he said that in addition to these nations, the descendants of Cush, like in Sudan, South Sudan, and the descendants of the Persians, the real Persians. And a lot of times people think that the real Persians are the Arabs that we see in Iran. But if you look at the history of the Arabs in Iran, they are descendants of Turks that came from Turkmenistan, that's right above Iran on the northeastern side, just east of the Caspian Sea, south of Kazakhstan, and next to Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. So a lot of these white Arabs, they were originally Turks, and they left Central Asia and they ditched their pagan religion and adopted the religion that they chose, which is Islam. And they migrated into Mesopotamia, even into the Trans-Caucasus region where you have Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan. A lot of the Iranian leaders and Ayatollahs are actually from Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. And so they are not the original Persians that spoke the original Persian language. If you really connect back to the culture and oral history and language and DNA of ancient Persia, going back to like 500 BC, which is 2,500 years ago, you will see that it connects to the North Indians, the Northwestern Indians that are in Gujarat. They speak Gujarati and Punjabi and Sindh, and the Pakistanis speak Urdu and Pashto and Farsi and Darsi and these different languages that are all related to the Persian dialect. So when you look at the real Persians today, in ancient times, they were brown-skinned people. And today, the Persians or the Iranians today are white. So when you look at the other group of brown-skinned peoples in the world, you're gonna think about Africans and Indians, because Indians come in different shades of brown. From the north, where it's lighter color, to the south, where it's darker color. You see that in South Africa. They are the descendants of real Persians. And it's crazy because in America, I used to, in different states, I would catch an Uber, and sometimes you have a Pakistani or Indian driver, and I would ask them, I said, you know what, in your languages, there's a lot of Persian in your languages, almost identical to the old Persian language. And a lot of the Indians and Pakistani, they laugh and they say, oh, you noticed that, didn't you? And I said, yes. And they said, well, it's because we are the real Persians, not the people that's there now. That's what they told me. And they said that if you are a scholar in the Persian language and you understand history, you will know this, and we know this, but most of the world does not know this. So the Bible says that in the last days that India, East India, the descendants of Meshach and Tubal, which is connected to Russia and a lot of the Slavic lands. You look at the descendants of Magog. The descendants of Magog, the Magogians, are the people that conquer the European Union countries, the EU, Western Europe and Eastern Europe. When you look at Gomer, Gomer is listed in Ezekiel 38:6. Gomer is connected to the Chinese. The reason why I know this, because in America, a lot of the Chinese and the Koreans are there, and some of them are Christians. And Korea is attached to China. It's not a separate island like Japan. It's attached to China, North Korea, South Korea. That's why North Korea has a relationship with the president of China, Xi Jinping. And when you ask the Koreans who that are Christians, you say, I asked them, I say, in your church, who are you a descendant of in terms of Noah and his 3 sons? And they go to their Bible in Korean and they say, oh, the pastor did a lesson on this the other day, and we are the descendants of Gomer, the son of Japheth. I asked a Chinese guy, he's in the healthcare field with me, he's a physician assistant, and his first name is Zijang, and I said, hey, this was in Cantonese Mandarin, I can't read it. But I tried to decipher some of the things that I see in English. And I said to him, can you translate what this says? And he translated it, and he says, Ron, this is ancient history of the Chinese people, and according to the Bible, and he said, according to the Bible and Noah's flood with the ark, where Noah had 3 sons and their wives, he said the Chinese people come from Japheth and his son Gomer. And I said, really? And he said, yes, that's what it says in Mandarin, Ryan, I'm reading it for you. And he said, why do you want to know? I said, it's okay, I'll tell you later. So in the Bible, in Ezekiel 38, it lets us know, and the Arabs are connected to the children of Togarmah. in Ezekiel 38:6, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters. So a lot of the Arabs are from Turkmenistan, in the house of the Turks. So back in the day, they were called the Turkmen, the Turkomen, the Oghuz Turks, the Ottoman Turks, the Uyghurs, the Sabirs, the Khazars. There's a lot of different ethnicities that lived in Central Asia that over time, the etymology of their name changed. So now we don't use the word Ottoman Turks. We don't use the word Turks unless they're talking about Turkmenistan or Turkey. Today we look at the white Arabs and we just say they're Arabs. And so, but their ancient history and ancestry goes back to the children of Togarmah, which in the Bible tells us is one of the nations that are going to come to the land of Canaan. Now, what it says is that the Bible says in verse 7, be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So God is telling the Israelites to be prepared. Prepare thyself, thou and all the people that are assembled unto thee, and be a guard unto them. So if God tells you that a thief is coming to your land, and these are their nations, their names, this is where they're located at, and they're going to come in the future and they're going to steal stuff from you and your land and resources. If God tells you to be prepared and to be on guard, then when a king of another nation or prince or delegate comes to your land to try to give you a deal, to sign an agreement, whatever, then the Bible says to be on guard for what he said is going to happen. And it says that these nations are going to come like a storm. In the Hebrew, it uses the word sho, S-H-O. I know in South Africa we say sho. But in the Hebrew, sho means to devastate, to destroy, to ravage. And it says that these nations are going to come to the land of Canaan, which is sub-Saharan Africa, to destroy, to devour, to ravage. And it also says that they are going to be like a cloud to cover the land. Now, in the Hebrew, the word is kasah, K-A-S-A-H, and it actually means to flee, to hide, to take cover. And so these other nations are going to take cover and flee and hide and come to the land of sub-Saharan Africa. But it also says that they're going to come with a lot of people. And it says in verse 10 that at the same time that these other nations, the Russians, the Chinese, the East Indians, the Pakistani, the Afghanistani, the Somalians, the Arabs, the Jews, the Europeans, it says at the same time that they're coming to the land of Canaan, sub-Saharan Africa, to hide, to flee, to conceal, to take cover, they're going to have an evil thought that's going to come to their head, or an evil agenda, an evil scheme, an evil plan. It says this in Ezekiel 38, verse 10. And it says, this is what they say, I will go to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. Now, if you go to the rural areas of Africa where you had the chieftaincy and traditional land that's typically leasehold, that's owned by the kings and the chiefs and tribal lands, you're not going to see large walls and fences and electric fences, Iron Dome, you're not going to see all this stuff. There's people going to be living peacefully in the village. You know that Africa's defense in terms of nuclear capability is not the same as all these European countries like Europe, Australia, China, Russia, North Korea, United States. So a lot of the countries like Swaziland and Togo and Benin and Uganda, they don't have nuclear weapons. They don't have a massive army of a billion people to call it whenever they want to attack. So ideally, when you look at it, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa is the land of peace. People are dwelling peacefully. There's no nations that are waging to drop missiles and bombs on African countries like you see in Israel and Iran and in Ukraine and Russia. And so in verse 12, it says that these other nations are going to take a spoil, meaning to steal, to loot. And you can do this, you can steal by coercion. You can take land and resources like gold and silver and diamonds by coercion, by signing the contract with a president or politician, but giving them a bad deal. And if there's any bribery going with that, then you know that it's a bad deal. It's going to benefit the person that's signing the contract and the agreement. If he's the leader of a country, at the end of the day, he may get rich, but the people may suffer. But then the other party from another nation is going to get all this land, all this mining rights for gold and diamonds and silver and iridium and platinum. And so this is a way that they can spoil the land by coercion. And it says that in addition to that, they are going to prey upon the people that are living in the land. So when another nation preys upon people that are in sub-Saharan Africa, like in South Africa or the Congo or Angola or Zimbabwe, it means that they are sitting back just looking, seeing like, how can I come to this country and take what I need and to advance myself at the expense of them. And they know that they can't go there and enslave us like the old days, like the slavery in West Africa and South Africa. They know they can't do another apartheid and just say you gotta go over here. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna set up laws. If you go against it, we're gonna throw you in jail. They know those days are gone. So these days they have to pray and strategically think about how can they come to Africa and make money. Because at the end of the day, when you look at a lot of the industries and business sectors in Africa, the Gentiles or the other nations are at the forefront. Mining, entertainment, food, advertising, marketing, education, cybersecurity, retail, trade, mining, tourism.
For people who might not be familiar with this terminology, when you say Gentiles, who do you mean?
The Gentiles are the other nations that are non-Bantu.
Okay, so it's the Gentiles and the Bantu.
The Gentiles are people that are not Bantu.
Yes, what I'm saying in this picture, there's Gentiles and there's the Bantu.
Exactly.
Because earlier, actually, I'd wanted to ask, when you had said the Bantus had start from the top,
yes,
I wanted to say, okay, so if there's Bantus, who else is there?
Yes.
So it's just Gentiles.
Yeah, so
Gentiles means plus many more.
Yeah, other people, other nations.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of saying Russians, Chinese, Indians, Afghan, all the time, I'm just going to say the Gentiles, because Gentiles is essentially non-black, non-Negro, or non-Bantu people.
Thank you.
So it says that these other nations in verse Ezekiel 38:12 are going to come to people that have cattle and they have land. It says that they're going to go against the people and prey upon the people that have land and they have livestock. And then it says in verse 13 that the merchants of that time that we're in, which is today, they're going to say, have thou king to take a great spoil, to carry away silver and gold, to gather thy company to take a prey, to take away cattle and land, to take a great spoil. So not just come and steal, but to steal a lot. That the merchants in this prophecy is asking the question to the people, you have gathered your company here in Africa to prey upon the people. In addition to that, to take away silver and gold, and that means raw material wealth. They don't have to. The Bible doesn't have to say platinum, diamond, cobalt, coltan. It's going to say silver and gold, because in those days that was the precious metals that signify wealth. And so it says all of this. And the crazy thing is that when you look around, recently Saudi Arabia, the president or the prince, he signed a $25 billion investment deal in African countries in different sectors such as agriculture, energy, mining, cybersecurity, defense, I mean, transportation, entertainment, tourism. They got the whole list. And you gotta realize that look at what the Arabs are doing in Africa. In addition to the Chinese, in addition to the Russians, in addition to the strongholds that East Asians, well not East Asians, but East Indians have in East Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, South Africa. Anybody that's in East Africa, like Tanzania, Kenya, if you say, are the Indians there? They can say, yes. You go to the Congo, you go to Ghana, you can say, are the Indians there? Yes. You go to Southern Africa, Botswana, South Africa, are the Indians there? Yes. Then when you look at the recent, I just seen the other day that the president of Botswana, he signed a $12 billion investment deal with like a royal guy in Qatar, and $12 billion. So this was Qatar giving $12 million to Botswana. What are they going to get in return? They're not giving this as a freebie. It's not a freebie. They are going to have to benefit in some way. Nobody gives a loan without them benefiting. So if you give a loan for a car, a loan for a house, and you attach 15% interest on it, then yeah, you're going to make money from that loan. But when you invest money into a continent or a country, and you say, I'm investing in agriculture, in energy, which could be electricity, water, coal, timber, logistics, technology, energy, mining, tourism. They list all of the sectors. It's because they are going to insert themselves into the equation where they're going to benefit, and then the countries are going to benefit. This is the reason why the Beers and a lot of these Arabs in Tanzania are making billions of dollars. The richest people in Tanzania is not black people. They're other nations. You got Jews and Arabs that are billionaires in the Congo, billionaires in the Republic of Congo, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Botswana. It's because of many years of them coming to the continent to do exactly what I just said. But at the end of the day, who benefits and who is given the short end of the stick? And when I see I've been here for the last 3 years, I still see from 3 years ago that in the daytime, the other nations, the Chinese, the East Indians, the Arabs, the Europeans, the Jews, the Pakistani, they're not really working. If they're working, they own the business that they're in. You go to Telcom, you go to Vodacom, you go to any type of shop. If it's an Indian man there or Pakistani man or Iranian man there, and you ask them, who's the owner? They can say, well, he's the owner. Are you from Iran? Yes. What are you from? Pakistan. Where are you from? Afghanistan. Where are you from? And yes, they're working, but who is the owner? You go to Woolworths, who's the owner? The Jews. This is a fact. You go to Pick and Pay, who's the owner? The Jews. What about ShopRite? What about Checkers? You follow the rabbit hole, you'll see who owns these entities. Even BET is owned by Paramount Global, which is owned by the Redstone family, and they're Jewish. So even black people don't own BET. So we have to look at all the things that are happening, the narrative that's being controlled. When you look at what certain content creators are allowed to put on their YouTube channel that doesn't get the kind of engagements, doesn't get the kind of monetization that other content is just foolishness gets, and people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars on YouTube pushing this kind of content in narratives, but those are people that are pushing truth content, wake more people up, activate their minds. They're not being monetized like the others. That's because when other nations control your platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Netflix, Amazon, Showmax, then you gotta say, well, they control it, so they are gonna control the narrative. Who wouldn't control the narrative if it goes against them being in power and ruling and dominating and keeping their foot on our necks? So this is actually everything that the Bible speaks of, but the Bible tells us, guys, we have to wake up to who we are. Then we have to understand where our homeland is, the Holy Land. If we understand that we are not Gentiles, we go to church and we see white Jesus, and then you ask a Christian in America, a black Christian or black Christian in Africa, what color are the Jews? If they're white. What color is your Lord and Savior? Jesus. White. You know this. I said, well, who told you that? You say, well, could they be wrong? Could he be black? No, he's white. Look at the Jews, they're white. But could they be wrong? Who gave us this history? Who gave us the Bible? Who gave us this narration? The Europeans did. It's the King James authorized Bible translated in Greek, in Latin, in English. They gave it to us. It's actually our history that they made it into a book. Just like when you have a movie based on a true story, the producer of the movie and the executive producer and the director and the writer can all be white, but then it's based on a true story. It could be about the Zulu nation, the Congo Empire, but who's the producer, the writer, the director? Okay, they made it based on a true story, but they're going to make it to fit the narrative that they want people to see on the TV. Not give you everything, because then when they give you everything and it's the truth, then the truth can wake us up. And that's the whole reason why one of the main things I see here and even in America and Africa is that religion is one of the number one strongholds, whether it's Christianity or Islam. Our belief in God and Savior, and what the Europeans and the Muslims have created for our God. Muhammad is white. He's an Arab. He's not black. Jesus is white. He's our Savior. He's the King of the Jews. The Jews are white. So as long as you continue this narrative of religious strongholds, then the people that are the actual real Israelites that are dwelling on the real Holy Land, then how can you do all things according to who you are and your destiny, fulfilling your destiny and prophecy in the Bible, if you don't know who you are and where your homeland is? And a lot of people, they say, well, Brian, you can't prove that this is the Holy Land and that we are the Israelites. Well, it's easy to prove that we are the Israelites, but to prove who the Canaanites are is something that the Europeans did to trick us, but it's embedded in the Hebrew language, the Egyptian language, and the Bible stories. We just have to interpret that. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is that in the original Torah of the Bible, they had initially said that some people believe that Noah had 3 sons. He had Japheth, Shem, and Yam, or Ham. Depending on the person you ask, they will say Ham. And then Ham had a son, not named Canaan, but Yam. In the land of Yam, which in the Arabic story or the Hadith is synonymous with Canaan or Canaan. The land of Yam was known as the land of the South. And when you look at the word, like in the Pedi and the Soto and the Swana language, Borwa means South. You look at the Khoisan, you can call them Barwa, Bosarwa, Abatwa, but then even if you use the word Barwa, B-A-R-W-A, the word Borwa in the Pedi Soto Swana language means South, or people that live in the southern lands, the people that don't own cattle or livestock. They're not rich. They're not farmers and shepherds. Then when you look at the word Mazanzi, does it mean south or something like that?
Yeah.
So
Bottom.
bottom. So in the Arabic and the Hebrew narrative, the land of Yam, according to the Egyptians, was the land of the south. South of what? South of the kingdom of Egypt and Nubia or Cush. So south of Egypt and Sudan was where the land of Canaan was at. When the Egyptians traveled south along the Nile, up the Nile, they had to get into Uganda to get to the source of the Nile. When you get to Uganda, you are actually at the equator. So the equator marks the division between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So to get to the south, you have to cross the equator to get to the southern lands. So you would have to leave Egypt, go through Sudan, which is the land of Cush, into Uganda to get to the Victoria Nile, to Lake Victoria, or to the Albertine Nile, which is Lake Albert, which is in between Uganda and the DRC, Congo. So Yam in Hebrew, or Yamin, means south. And the Canaanites were the people that dwelled in the south, meaning who dwelled in the south when the Bantu people left Egypt and came down up the Nile. When they came up the Nile into Malawi and Kenya and Tanzania and Rwanda, Burundi and the Congo, even in South Africa and Namibia, they ran into the Khoisan, the African pygmy, and these were your little black people, your hunter-gatherers. The word Yam is also the name of the Canaanite, Syrian, Egyptian deity that is the god of the primordial waters. So the deity named Yam is sort of like the children of El, which is a Canaanite god. So El he was the chief deity of the Canaanites, El. And the Fa pygmies in the DRC, in the northeastern Ituri forest, they call God Il, not with an EL, but IL, or Ilu, ILU, or IL, or EL. That's what they call God. Like the word El is the Canaanite chief god of their people, like the pygmies and the Khoisan. So when you look at the word Yam, Yam is the god of the oceans, the rivers, the lakes, the springs, the waterfalls. And all of these bodies of water are great in Central Africa. Waterfalls, oceans, lakes, streams, rivers, torrents. And the Egyptians also used the word Hapi as the god of the Nile. That's the god of the Nile. But the god of all the waters was Yam. And Yam was also the land of the south, or the land of the horizon dwellers, or the land of the children of the jungle, the children that dwelt at the base of the mountains of the moon. So the little African pygmies that dwell at the base of the mountains and in the mountains, they were called the children of the forest, or the children of the jungle. And they lived in the south, Barwa, Borwa, Vurwa, like in Venda, Vhurwa. When you look at the word Canaan, because now we're going from Yam to Canaan. Canaan in Hebrew means to be humiliated, to be despised, rejected, to be brought low down, to be subjugated, to be subdued, to be conquered, to bend to your submission or will. And the word, it comes from the root word kana, Kana. Now, in the Egyptian language, the word kana is a diminutive prefix or an adjective. So if you want to say like in America, a diminutive prefix the most common is mini. Mini skirt, mini car, mini bus, to denote that that object is small. In ancient Egypt, the prefix ka or ki is used to denote a small child. So in ancient Egypt, the word kana was used to denote a small child, ka ana. And when we look at the word muana, that is a child in ancient Egypt. So M-U-A-N-A or M-W-A-N-A in ancient Egypt was the Egyptian Proto-Bantu word for a child, or based off the root word ana. So in any Bantu language, whether it's in Kiswahili, Ekigusi, Kikuyu, yes, you're gonna see they're gonna say Mwana, or depending on how the variation is, you're always gonna see the word ana attached to the end. No matter if it's the NG or MW or MU, it's always gonna be Mwana or ana. But in Kiswahili and a lot of the East African languages, when you add the K, A, Ka, Ana, or Kana, it means a small child. A small, like if I had a brother and we were all tall and then one of them was small, and my father was to ask, where's your smaller brother? He will say, where's your Kana, or something like that. But an adult can never be referred to as the word kana. A child is always going to be either kana if he's small or muwana. So when you look at the word ka ana, it gives the basis of the word kana. And ka ana can mean also in Kiswahili somebody who's despised or rejected, which is what the Canaanites were done to in the curse of Canaan in Genesis chapter 9, verse 25 to 28. Because you see that in that story of the curse of Canaan, that Moses got drunk with wine, not Moses, but Noah got drunk with wine, and then Canaan, or it was Ham uncovered his nakedness, and then Canaan was cursed. Canaan was despised. Canaan was rejected. And because of that, Canaan was to be a servant to his other African brothers. He was supposed to be a servant to the sons of Shem and a servant to the sons of Japheth. So in verse 26, 28, Canaan is told to be, he's going to be a servant to his Hamitic brothers, his Shemitic people, kinfolk, and Japheth. And when you look at the word in Hebrew, the word kana means to be humble, to be subjugated, to be humiliated, to be brought down, to be sort of, in a sense, to be conquered. When the Bantu people, the story of the Bantu people or the Israelites is coming from their narrative, what people out of all the people on earth did the Israelites subjugate in their dominion? And who did they cause to be under their servitude? And who did they drive out of the land? Who did they come into their land and just take over and multiply so that they are now lower caste people, marginalized in their former land? It is the African pygmies in the Khoisan. They were the first nation people that were living in sub-Saharan Africa while the Bantu people were in Egypt. When the Bantu people came down to sub-Saharan Africa, they conquered and ruled and subjugated the African pygmies and the Khoisan, who, and by definition, are, when you encounter them, they're little. The Bantu are tall. These are little people running around. You don't know if they're all children because they're all little. You would assume that they're children, even though a lot of them are adults because they're short. And so that's why the African pygmies are coined the children of the jungle, because the Caucasian man, the Bantu, and other nations in Africa, when they saw the pygmies, they see like children running around playing, singing, not governed by really any laws. They have maybe one king, but they don't have any kingdoms. They're not running the show. They didn't rule Africa like that. And so the same subjugation and conquering and being brought low and humiliation, and in the root word of ka-ana, small child. When you look at the ancient Hebrew, in the ancient times, they used hieroglyphics and pictographs. So to denote a small person or a small child, you would use the word kana, which is the root of Canaan or Canaan. And when you look at small people who are subjugated, conquered, humiliated, rejected, despised, brought low, it's the African pygmies and the Khoisan, because they really have been not kicked out, but they have been moved to the side of their land. And now when you look at the bulk of the people in the south of Africa, or the southern hemisphere of Africa, it's the Bantu, not the pygmies. The pygmies are in the mountains and the forests. They're very small in number compared to the Bantu. Sub-Saharan Africa is ran by the Bantu. It's a Bantu land. There's no other nation of Africans that outnumber the Bantu. The Somalians don't, the Ethiopians don't, the Eritreans don't, the Hausa, the Fulani, the Tuaregs, the Khoisan, the African pygmies. None of these other nations outnumber the Bantu. Why? Because the Bantu came from the north into the south, and they subjugated everybody else. And they moved into the side, and they kept populating and establishing their own kingdoms in cities and towns and villages. So when you look at the whole story of the Israelites and them leaving Egypt and bringing with them Egyptian loanwords in their language, and then Egyptian borrowings in their culture, in their traditions, you can see the stuff that we wear in South Africa. You can see the headpieces around the neck, the bracelets.
Yes.
It's all going back to ancient Egypt. Yes. Even this is seen in ancient Egypt. So the story of the Hebrews leaving Egypt after like hundreds of years and coming to South Africa, or this Africa in general, you can see that in the language, you can see that in the culture, you can see that in the oral history, and you can see that even in the history of the Canaanites and how the Israelites subjected the Canaanites to their dominion. Because in the book of Judges chapter 1, it tells you that almost half of the 12 tribes could not get rid of the Canaanites out of the land. God told them, when you possess the land of Canaan, he said to drive them out. He said that. And he said that when you go into the land of Canaan, don't do the things that they do. You know, like scarification, the tattoos, things like that. And eventually we taught them, you know, certain things like circumcision and circumcising the pygmies. But ultimately, when God told us that we were leaving Egypt and he was sending us to a land, a good land, a large land, a land of milk and honey, you got to have trees to have honey. And the pygmies and what the Malawians call the akafulu, or the abattoir, or, you know, it's different ways you can say it. These are your little people, your honey collectors. They climb the trees. They smoke out the bees. They get the honeycomb wafer. They eat it. They come down and they feed the whole village the honey. And when the Bible tells us that you live in this land, you're going to a land that's full of mountains, hills, and then through the hills and mountains are valleys, the African Great Valley, rivers, springs, lakes, real lakes, not the Sea of Galilee, which is really a small lake. And all these things, waterfalls, the God's telling us that when they left Egypt, that he gave them the land of sub-Saharan Africa, a good land. And because he gave us that good land, he knew that in the future, we were going to need this land to sustain ourselves and survive. But what the other nations have done, and what they are still conspiring to do, according to Ezekiel 38, is to weaponize the land against us for their benefit, that they're not supposed to have anything to do with our land anyway, because the Bible says that you're not supposed to sell your land. If the land I gave you, thus saith the Lord, do not sell it to anybody. That's why in the Bible you had the 50-year release, where you can lease the land to a foreigner or kinfolk. Like if your kinfolk is poor and he needs some land to farm, you can lease it to him for 50 years. After 50 years, then it goes back to the owner of the land. He has the right and decision to say, okay, I'm going to lease it to you again for another 50 years. This is where you get the 50-year lease and the 99-year lease that's seen in South Africa and Central Africa and East Africa. It's in the Bible. But the Gentiles, they don't care about the Bible. They want to come and get the land. They want a land grab, kick you to the side. They want to get all the good land, and you get this land over here. Then they want to get the mineral rights to the land. So now, in addition to the land, now they can mine the land and just tear up the land and get the gold out, the silver out, the diamonds out, the platinum out, the iridium out, and then use it to make so much money. Because you look at the price of gold per ounce, the price of silver per ounce, the price of platinum per ounce, the price of iridium, which is in South Africa, per ounce. It's staggering. And all they got to do is come here, get some tools and some mining equipment, take it out, take it to UAE. In the UAE, they have the minting and mining company, and they process and refine the gold and the silver and the platinum that's in your ground, inside your land. You're standing walking on it, all this gold, and they have the ability to take it out of the ground, and then now they can sell it to the worldwide market for $3,000 an ounce. $3,000 an ounce. So imagine if you have a ton of gold, and you got it out their land, not your land, their land. And all the money you're making from the gold that's in their land, the people living that's walking on the land, they're poor. If they don't have running water, electricity, they don't have. See, this is what the Bible says that they're going to do. But the Bible tells us that we have to be on guard and prepared for when they come with the act of coercion and preying upon our people and spoiling us of all the things that the Bible says that he gave us at the end of the day.
Yes.
And this is why I always say that until we wake up, then the other nations are going to continuously dominate us. And it's not about who's smarter or who has the knowledge and the high IQ. No, it's not about that, because we have a lot of people that went to school, that know how to do these different things. They're skilled, and we have the ability to use our hands and feet to toil the land, to sow from the land, to reap the harvest, to use the land to our benefit, like Wakanda, and have sustainable energy from the water, from the sun, and all this stuff. You know, all these things we can do on our own. It's just that from way back, the Gentiles have always wanted to spoil and prey upon the land of Canaan. It says that in the Bible. And now the only thing is that based on what the Bible says is going to happen in the future, we are seeing newcomers on the scene. Not just the Europeans, the British, the Portuguese, the Netherlands, the Dutch, the Africans.
Everybody's coming,
French.
yeah?
Yeah. I was just in the car with a brother, a realtor, a Zulu guy. And he said in the car, he said, I'm a realtor, Ryan, and the Chinese are here in South Africa, and they are buying up a lot of land. He said they're getting agricultural land. He said they're getting residential land. He said the agricultural land, if they can rezone it to the residential, then they do that, and then they build apartment blocks in estates, in homes. And he said that they build these estates for like, let's say a one unit costs 600,000 rands. Then after they're done, they can sell the unit for 1.2 million rands. So they can build a one bedroom, one bath unit for 600,000 rands. And then they sell it, and then when they're done, they have the grand opening, and they have all the amenities. Some people are, oh, it has a pool, it has a gym, it has a clubhouse, it has a security system, it has a free internet. Then they come and they buy the unit for double the price they pay for it. And he said that the Chinese are doing this all over South Africa and in other countries. And then I said, who else is doing this? He said, the Russians. I said, what? He said, the Russians are here now. What are they doing? He said, the same thing the Chinese are doing. He said, they're coming in. He said, this is what you do. This is what you run. He said, the Russians are in Russia asking for a catalog. We have to send them a catalog of all the land that is for sale. Freehold land, not leasehold, freehold land. And we send them all this land for sale. So it means that anybody can buy it if you got the money and it's for sale. And then when the Russians see anything they like, then they call the realtor. They say, I'm on the next flight to Joburg or Tambo. They fly in to South Africa. They go look at the land. They see the land is good. They say, I want to buy the land. They got the money to wire it right then and there. Sign the transfer of duty, sale. And as a foreigner, since foreigners can purchase land in South Africa, if you got the money, then it don't matter if it's 100 hectares, 200 hectares that's sitting near a mountain, near a river, lake, stream. It could be leopards and wildebeests and warthogs and gazelles and all types of animals living in that area. They're like, hey, it's for sale. And they buy it, and they either sit on it, and they sit on it and sit on it, and then they rezone it. And then when they rezone it, it's residential, commercial, and they sit on it, and they say, okay, do I want to do something with it and make money? Or do I want to wait until somebody else has the money to do something with it because I just bought it for a good price and then I rezoned it and now it's worth more money because I rezoned it. And if somebody comes along and wants to build a shopping center, plaza, you're gonna have to pay me. And so this is how the Bible tells us that the number one asset in Africa is land. God's gift to the Israelites was what? Land. He gave Abraham this land and said, your descendants are going to be the heirs of this land that I gave to you as a gift, as a covenant. So the Gentiles, the other nations are doing exactly what the Bible says they're going to do. And it lists in the book of Ezekiel, if you understand who they are, decipher their real origin, which is what I do in the movie Hebrews to Negroes 3, Volume 3, Gog and Magog's army versus the Israelites. So in that movie, I break down the etymology of the word China, Russia, India, the Arabs and the Jews and where they come from, the Europeans, the European nation, the European Union.
The Gentiles.
The Gentiles, Bulgaria, Khazaria, Scythia, Germania, Britannia, Gaul, Rome, Greece, Macedonia, Iberia. I break down the names of these ancient territories of Europe. And then I bring it back to the Bible and say, okay, if we follow the trail all the way back thousands of years ago, the Chinese are the descendants of Gomer. The Magagians, they conquered the old Roman Empire, Eastern and Western Europe. The children of Torgomoth are the Jews and the Arabs today that are in the Middle East, in the Levant. When you look at the children of Meshach and Tubal, these are Slavic, Germanic mixture from the Vikings to Russia and in the southern Slavs. These are all your different nations. And then when you look at, and the kicker is, the Bible tells us that these other nations are going to make alliances with the children of Put. The children of Put are in the Sahel, in Chad, in Western Sudan, in Niger, in northern Nigeria, northern Ghana, northern Benin, Burkina Faso, Mali. When you look at who's making alliances with Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, it's the Russians. The Russians, the Wagner Group, the Russians are coming in. They swooped in all these French-speaking colonized countries like Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. They're tired of the French. They said, get them out of here. When the youth say, we want the French out of here, who comes in and say today? The Russians. So now that the people in the Sahel are waving Russian flags, they're not waving French flags, they're waving Russian flags. The Russians are the descendants of Meshach and Tubal. The Bible tells us that Persia, Cush, and Put with them. So the Russians are making alliances in agreements. When you see Putin and Ibrahim Traore sitting down and they're signing agreements, it's military, political, and economic. So Putin is coming with all his people, the billionaires, the oligarchs, the Jews, they have all this money in Russia. And they say, you know what? Putin, the Wagner Group is the military force that's going to come and calm things down. They're going to stabilize a destabilized country. Al-Qaeda and the terrorist groups are running rampant in Burkina Faso. We're going to come with our military group, the Wagner Group. We're going to stabilize it. Why? Because now we need to see what we can get out of Burkina Faso. What do they want? They want the mining rights. So Burkina Faso has like 3 to 4 or 5 different mines in the different parts of Burkina Faso. Russia, as soon as they swooped in and told Ibrahim Traore, we got you, don't worry about the West, we're going to support you militarily, economically, politically. Standing together, shaking hands. Then the next thing is, we want mining rights. Okay, how much do you want? We want 80%. 80%, you get 20. We want 90%, you get 10. We'll take our 90% cut, take it to the UAE, where the minting factory in the UAE is going to process and refine that gold, and then we're going to keep it for ourselves in our vaults, or we're going to sell it to the next buyer. And that's exactly what's happening in Mali, in Niger, and Burkina Faso. So it's a strategic plan that these other nations are doing, and we don't see at the end of the day that the prized possession of the land of Africa is sub-Saharan Africa. You look at the highest GDP countries, is South Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and there's other countries that have a lot of wealth that can contribute to its GDP if you have the right people to tap into it, but at the same token, they're going to benefit from it as well. So overall, I mean, the main thing I'm trying to get to people to understand is that in the Bible, in Ezekiel 38, it tells us that all these nations are coming to the land of the Israelites. None of these nations are coming to take anything from Israel, because Israel is a desert. Israel is a war zone. There's nothing there. So why would the Bible tell these other nations to go to a land, to take livestock, to take silver, to take gold, when Israel has no silver and gold? If they had silver and gold mines, then why are the Jews mining silver and gold here?
So what's all the fighting about then for that strip?
It's to confuse us. Because at the end of the day, the TV has to keep us distracted. Looking at the Ukraine-Russian war and Israel, Iran, the Hamas, Hezbollah axis, and people get scared. Ooh, it's the end of days. Just don't mess with the Holy Land, and they equate this to biblical prophecy. The Christians do, and the Jews, the whole world does, but not knowing that. Looking at this constant fight, they've been fighting for a long time in that area. It's not going to stop. It has not stopped since they got there. And the Bible even says that when you come back to the land of Israel from your other lands, that nobody will make you afraid. You will dwell in peace, rest, and safety. And it says this. So when we see the war in Israel and we see people are fleeing Israel, the Bible does not say that we're supposed to come back to the Holy Land just to leave the Holy Land. Because why would God tell you to come back to the Holy Land, and then when you're getting hit with missiles, then you got to leave the Holy Land? That contradicts what the Bible actually says. So when you go to South Africa and you say, how many undocumented illegal immigrants are in the Western Cape? You say it's almost 3 million. Who are they? Ukrainians and Jews.
Oh, and on that note,
it's not African Americans. You can't say that in the Western Cape, a lot of immigration is happening from Black Americans. No, in the Western Cape, it's who's fleeing their country? The Jews and Ukrainians. Where are they going? South Africa. Black people, like you already know, are trying to get their visas here in South Africa, and they're getting rejected. It's so hard. It's so hard. For us to come back to Africa, we have to jump through hoops. My wife did her DNA test. It said Congo, Cameroon, South African, Bantu. It's on her DNA test. But can we take that DNA test and say, hey, we are from this land, Cameroon, Congo, can we get citizenship? No. But when you look at people like Jean-Claude Van Damme, he did the movie Bloodsport and Kickboxer, and he can do the splits. Because he's a Belgium origin, meaning his parents are from Belgium, and Belgium colonized the Congo. He went to the Congo. He said, "I want to get citizenship," and they gave it to him. But black people in America that we do our DNA test, it says Congo, Cameroon, Angola, South African Bantu. We can't take that DNA test to these countries and say we want our citizenship. They ain't gonna do that. But the colonial nations like the British and the Netherlands, if they can show, if the kid from the Netherlands says my parents and grandparents are from the Netherlands or Dutch, then they can come to South Africa and they might be able to get citizenship because they have the ancestry of the former colonizer. Just like the East Indians, if you can show that you have ancestry going back to India, you can get the OCI card. The OCI card means that now you are a permanent resident / citizen of India and South Africa. You just got to be able to show that you are in South Africa and you have Indian ancestry through your grandparents. Somehow, send it to India, then India will send you a permanent residency permit. So now you can live in India as long as you want. You can start a business. You can come back and forth between South Africa and India. You can do whatever you want to do. And this is how the other nations are working it so that they can have a citizenship in United Kingdom and in South Africa. I know a lot of South Africans that are from United Kingdom, and they say, well, Ron, I'm going to United Kingdom. I said, how? I thought you're South African. Oh yeah, we got dual citizenship.
Yeah.
And they just
like
stay.
That.
Yeah, they just stay here in Cape Town and Johannesburg and just live their life, and then they decide I want to go to UK for a month or two.
Yeah.
And just fly there. No visas, no filling out applications, getting approved. No, they just go there and they just live in two different countries. But we can't do that as Black Americans. So there's a lot of things that we just need to talk about and share at the grassroots level, at universities, at community centers, at colleges, in churches, if they will allow us, and just share this knowledge because the knowledge and the truth that we share hopefully can open up our eyes and open up our ears so we start seeing what's going on around us and we say, this is actually happening in the real time. And if we don't correct it, then what does our future look like for our young generation? Yeah. They got jobs, well, they got degrees, and they come out of getting a degree, and then they see, well, I got to work for another nation, or I can't even get a job.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton, and thank you for always making time for us. I'm sure we're going to call you again because we're taking snippets. Right now, we were following how the relationship between Abantu and the Gentiles and who the original people were. I'm hoping next time, if you can do a presentation for us, that'll show us the journey of ancient Africa. Oh, yes, I could do that. And where the Bible enters in then, right? And then, so that's will be our next lecture. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. To everybody who's joining in online, thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's live, but we're going to take it off and present it as a proper episode in a week or two. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Umoya ulight, umoya upright. See you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.